All right, let's dive right into this incredibly fascinating explainer. Today, we're looking at a deeply unusual but actually super structured solution to a massive environmental problem. We're talking about a Swedish startup called Corvid Cleaning. And honestly, their pitch sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, but it's entirely grounded in real animal psychology and solid business strategy. Because, believe it or not, they're enlisting wild birds to clean up our streets.
Now, the quote you're seeing here really hits the nail on the head. Thomas Thernstrom from the local municipality points out this profound, kind of sad irony. Humanity is relying on wild birds to clean up our toxic mess purely because we simply cannot stop littering ourselves. It's wild, right? We have anti-littering campaigns, we have fines, we have public ashtrays everywhere, and yet the problem is still here. So, instead of trying to fix stubborn human habits, these innovators are just turning straight to nature's own problem solvers.
Okay, real quick, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at this bird-brained cleanup crew, tackle the sheer scale of the trillion-butt problem, break down exactly how the conditioning works, map out their foray business strategy, and finally, wrap up with the ethics and health implications.
So, part 1, a bird-brained cleanup crew. Let's look at how this highly unconventional solution actually got its start.
The mastermind behind the whole shebang is a guy named Christian Gunther Hensen. The story goes that back in 2013, he was actually studying for a psychology test at Lund University. He hears some crows cawing outside the library, and boom, a light bulb goes off. He comes up with this brilliantly simple idea. What if wild hooded crows could voluntarily drop street litter into a special bin, and in exchange, they get a little food reward? And the absolutely crucial word here is voluntarily. There are 0 cages, no forced labor. It's an entirely opt-in gig for the wild birds living near Stockholm. Moving on to part 2, the trillion-butt problem. To really grasp why we even need a solution this out of the box, we've got to look at the numbers.
And the numbers are staggering. Every single year, the world buys roughly 6 trillion cigarettes. Out of those, a mind-blowing 4.5 trillion cigarette butts are just carelessly tossed into the environment. That means literally 75% of all cigarettes smoked end up as toxic waste. And it doesn't just sit there. It leaches thousands of chemicals right into our air, our water, and our soil.
Now look at this breakdown from Sweden, because it perfectly highlights the hyperlocal reality of this global mess. Sweden actually has one of the lowest smoking rates in the whole European Union. Only about 5% of their population smokes, but despite that, almost 1 billion cigarette butts are left on their streets every single year. They make up a whopping 62% of all street litter. So even in a highly developed, eco-conscious place with hardly any smokers, cigarette butts absolutely dominate the litter landscape.
Here's the thing. A single cigarette butt is tiny, right? It weighs something like 0.2 grams. Most folks just flick them away without even thinking twice. But when you aggregate millions of people doing that every day, it cumulatively adds up to 1.1 million tons of toxic, incredibly stubborn plastic waste globally, every single year. Just to put that into perspective, NOAA estimates it takes about 10 years for a single one of those butts to biodegrade in seawater.
Then, of course, there's the financial toll. 20 million Swedish krona. That is roughly 2.7 million US dollars. And that is the staggering annual cost of street cleaning for just one single Swedish city. Because these butts are so incredibly small, they easily slip right past manual brooms and mechanical sweepers, which forces local governments to spend an absolute fortune on highly targeted cleanup.
Okay, part 3. How Corvid Cleaning works. I know you're probably wondering, how on earth do you actually train a wild bird to do municipal chores?
Well, as this timeline shows, it definitely was not an overnight gimmick. This has been a very methodical project, nearly a decade in the making. From that first light bulb moment back in 2013, Christian spent years testing and refining his ideas. By 2019, they were testing a second prototype of their special vending machine. By 2021, hooded crows had successfully completed the full training protocol, and that is what finally paved the way for the 2022 public pilot tests.
But why corvids? Why crows, magpies, and jackdaws instead of, say, pigeons? Well, they were chosen specifically because they are incredibly intelligent. A 2014 study actually showed they have the reasoning and problem-solving skills of a 7 to 10-year-old human child. Plus, they already live in urban environments, meaning they can learn this new trick without having their natural habitats disrupted. They participate completely voluntarily, and here's the best part. They're social learners. Once a couple of birds figure the machine out, they actually teach the rest of the flock.
So how does the operant conditioning actually work? It's a very logical 3-step sequence. Step 1, the machine just gives out free food, which builds trust, so the birds know the bin is safe. Step 2, The machine requires the birds to pick up simple training sticks and drop them in to get a peanut. And then step 3 is the big pivot. The machine stops accepting sticks and only gives out rewards when the birds retrieve actual toxic litter from the ground. Eventually, they totally grasp the economics of the situation. Bring trash, get peanuts.
All right, Section 4, the 4A Business Framework. Let's pivot from the cool animal psychology and look at the actual business strategy here.
For this to be more than just a viral science fair project, it has to be economically sustainable. And as you can see, Corvid Cleaning's model maps perfectly onto the rigorous 4A management framework.
Let's break those 4A's down. Acceptability, massive win. We get cleaner streets without requiring a single human to change their habits or face new fines. Affordability, the custom bird bins are incredibly cheap to make, and the labor literally works for peanuts. It actually saves cities an estimated 20 for every single collected butt. Accessibility is super high because these machines are compact and can be popped up almost anywhere. And awareness? Come on, the concept is incredibly buzzworthy. It naturally generates global PR without them having to spend a single dime on marketing.
The bottom line here is just staggering. By rolling out this 4A strategy, Corvid Cleaning expects to slash a participating city's cigarette butt removal budget by an unbelievable 75%. Think about it. If a city is spending $2.7 million a year cleaning up this mess, a 75% cut frees up a massive amount of taxpayer money for other, much more essential services.
Finally, Section 5, Ethics, Health, and the Future. Because obviously, getting wild animals to handle our toxic waste brings up some serious questions.
We are talking about toxic chemicals, after all. So before this can scale up everywhere, strict ethical permits are an absolute must. Right now, Corvid Cleaning is working alongside the University of Stockholm to conduct a really comprehensive study on the potential health risks to the birds handling these tobacco filters. They are making absolutely sure the science validates this and no harm comes to our new feathered friends.
But Christian Gunther Hansen brings up a really fascinating counter-perspective on the ethics. He points out that these urban birds are already out there scavenging through human garbage anyway, discarded fast food, microplastics, stuff with absolutely zero nutritional value. With the Corvid cleaning bins, they aren't actually eating the toxic butts, they're just dropping them into a slot to receive a highly nutritious peanut. So, in a weird way, this controlled system might actually be a massive diet upgrade for the local flock.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer, leaving us with a pretty fascinating dilemma to chew on. We humans create a 4.5 trillion piece problem every single year, and we seem totally unwilling or unable to solve it ourselves. So, are you ready to welcome avian janitors into your city? Is tapping into the intelligence of wild birds a beautiful partnership with nature? Or does it just shine a glaring light on our own failure to manage our habitats? It's a tricky question, but you've got to admit it's a completely ingenious approach. Thanks so much for hanging out with me to explore this one. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.